Okay, the next bit is to insert the tubes on either side of the fuselage for the control arms, or for the control rods. They have you measuring 15 millimeters past where the edge of the wing goes, trailing edge, 15 millimeters. And then we're going to do 8 millimeters down from the saddle where the horizontal stabilizer is going to fit. Make a straight line between the two marks we've made. Starting at the 8 millimeter mark in the back, it'll run slightly below the hole you've already drilled for the wing tube, and it'll need to extend out to where that 15 millimeter mark was. My ruler isn't long enough, so we'll do it in 2 stages. We'll take our knife and cut the slot for the tube. It needs to be a deep slot at the forward end, because you're going to have to cut into and all the way through this wall of the fuselage. The slot will need to taper from that depth to about 3 millimeters deep in the rear. We'll go ahead and do it for the other side as well. Alright, after you cut the slot, we'll go ahead and insert the tube for the push rod. I've already got one side done. Show you how it will end up looking. It's gonna go into the fuselage, about stick out a ½ inch, run all the way down as straight as possible, and then flare out at the end here. I'll show you how it's done on this side. Poke it into the slot. I just press it in with my fingers. Coincidentally, this is the exact same technique I use when inserting the carbon fiber rods in the airplanes that use carbon fiber. Looks like we have about the same amount showing inside the fuselage. I just use my ruler, get it all the way down to the bottom of the cutout you made, and it helps get it nice and straight. Before you glue, it would not be a bad idea to run the push rod all the way through to make sure there's no kinks or a sharp turn somewhere where you can't see. If it runs smoothly, go ahead and glue it. If you can, dig the nozzle of the glue down into the foam. Get good coverage down to where the push rod, the tube is. A little bit of CA, and you can even squeeze it back together and hide the seam where you cut. This plane was designed for a brushed motor. Well, nobody uses those anymore, so we're going to go ahead and use a brushless motor. I'm using here a Hacker A20 26M brushless motor. It's also the same motor we use in the Warbird series, as well as a flying boat. So pretty much all the equipment you would purchase for this airplane can be used in all the World War II Warbirds. It's 3 wires, and you can hook it up to where the motor runs backwards. So if you find yourself in that situation, let me get this all set up. Got it hooked up to speed control without a prop on it. Very carefully hold it and just give it a little bit of power. Just enough to see which direction it's turning. This motor is mounted on the firewall, and the shaft comes out the front. You need the shaft to spin counterclockwise when looking at it from the front. So we're seeing is the motor is turning clockwise. So we'll unplug 2 wires and reverse them. Only 2. Now the motor should be running in the right direction. You can also, well, most speed controllers allow you to reverse the motor, but with programming, I find it's easier just to take care of it before you put the whole package in the airplane. After we get the motor going the right way, before we insert it in there, I'll show you this. Most all brushless motors have this 4-bolt pattern you see here. 2 of the bolt holes are closer to the shaft, and 2 of them are further away from the shaft. This firewall is pre-drilled with 2 holes which fit the old brushed motor, and it just so happens to fit the closer in holes. So, as we get this whole mess fit in here, we'll keep that in mind. First of all, the receiver wire from the speed control fits through the little hole at the back of the compartment. The speed controller itself will go at the very back of the compartment, and then we'll get the motor in there. Take note of the orientation you need to get those holes where they need to be. Then it's just a matter of using the screws that were included with your motor and securing the motor to the airplane. And after you get the motor in, we'll get the windshield and the top cowling cover. Windshield is number 6. This is number 5. The top cover has a beveled white end and a squared off black end, and it fits right on top with the beveled end facing aft. I find it easier just to apply a little CA to the area you're going to bond. This is all over. A little squirt of CA. Make sure it's on good and press it down. Next we'll attach the windshield. It's also got a squared off edge and a little beveled edge. The bevels fit together and it goes in just like that. Make sure your speed control wire is safe and out of the way of any CA. And you can hear the CA kicking off. Then we'll just kind of round off the corners here. With a nice sharp knife. Now, while I was cutting the corners off, I'd realized that some of the parts haven't adhered that well. So it's fairly easy to go back with a little CA inside of there. There may still be some accelerator, and there is. You can see the glue, not really bubbling, but you can see it reacting with the accelerator, and so you know it's doing its thing. This is also not very well secured. I can't hear or see anything happening, so I'm going to go ahead and squirt a bit of accelerator and get the glue kicked off. You'll find 2 wooden pieces about the same cross section as the spars, but much, much shorter. They're part number 26. They're fuselage top stiffeners. They're glued on top of the fuselage right here. You'll probably notice the fuselage is bulged out a little bit whenever you insert the servos. This will help get it back in. Apply some glue to the top. Line this up. Bring the fuselage in. Hold it down. It may kick off on its own because you have some wood in there. And it did. Good. We'll do the other side. Number 3, and the small square joining rod, or kind of a stick, part number 27, keeps the 2 elevator halves moving together. We'll make a mark 11 millimeters from the center of the hinge. So, we'll just kind of look over top, 11 millimeters from the center, and make a mark. That mark goes on the back edge of the joiner, so the mark will be here. I find it easier to make 1 mark and then just eyeball the distance across. You can make 2 if you prefer. Measure to make sure it's roughly centered. And then we need to cut a slot for it. I just hold it in place. Straight blade would be a little bit easier. Take a couple of passes to cut through. Don't try to do it all at once. The slot should only be about 3 millimeters deep, which is the size of the rod. If you cut all the way through like I did, it's not that big of a deal. Foam glues back together pretty easily. I'm also going to mark the ends so I'll know where to stop removing material. Now we have to get some of the material out of there so we can fit our joiner. I just undercut a little bit with a knife. On one side, and I'll do it on the other, and that makes a pretty good spot for it. Now, if you did cut all the way through, it's no big deal. We'll get our wax paper back out. Lay the joiner in, nice and flat. Whenever you glue this in, it'll just glue all the parts back together. The foam is very forgiving to work with. Hold it down, little kicker. Okay. Next thing is we're going to locate the elevator control horn. It's going to be, when you're looking at the elevator like this, it's upside down. Be on this one here on the right side. 6 millimeters from the point out, we're going to make a line from this point here to that 6 millimeters out. So probably need 2 rulers for this. Right there. The elevator control horn, as we discussed, is the one that has the small cutout in it. So on that line, we're going to make just a little slot for it. You don't need to cut out a notch to compensate for the width. We'll allow the foam just to take that up. So we cut a slot around the joiner for the elevator control horn. Break it out. Dress it up a bit. And it's going to go pointing forward. It goes around the rod. If yours doesn't fit, you may have to do a little bit of trimming. Be careful not to cut your fingers, and you want to trim an equal amount on either side. Once you've got it all trimmed up, insert it into that slot you made. And don't forget that angle as part of the slot. We'll set that aside and grab the rudder. We'll put the rudder like this with the rudder section to your left. We'll grab the last remaining control arm. Clean it up. Okay, now this one goes 18 millimeters below the bottom edge of the vertical stabilizer. So we'll bump our ruler up against the bottom edge of this section here. Measure down 18 millimeters. Figure out where it needs to be positioned and glue it. Just like with the ailerons, we'd like to keep the small hole in the control arm in line with the center of the hinge. Cut a slot for that tab, insert the tab, make sure the alignment's good and it's square with the hinge line. Okay, it's time to do some joining. Make it like an airplane. First thing we'll do is get the horizontal stabilizer and set it down right where it belongs. It does lock in. Turn the airplane over. holding it. Make sure it's square with the fuselage. The alignment tabs lock it in the other way. Then put some CA along the seam. Some may run down the bottom and try to glue your fingers to the airplane. Then we'll flip the plane over. The rudder and vertical stabilizer. The tabs will lock into the holes formed by the horizontal. Just like that. We use our square to ensure everything's square. And apply some glue. CA, little accelerator, final check for square. Now it's looking like an airplane.